2022.
A long time ago.
Yes, and she is an integral part of this community. Like, honestly, the heart and soul. I met her like over a Sidebar community dinner, and I was like, I love this woman. Like, I want to be best friends with this woman. Cara-Lyn, I still feel like we have to find a project to collaborate on, so I'm still waiting on that. But a few years back, she left her head of people role at Nextdoor and decided to go off on her own, and she's doing executive coaching, leadership coaching, offsite facilitation. Cara-Lyn, I feel like you have to figure out a way to become a Sidebar facilitator. So we should talk about that offline. But I'm
just campaigning hard, huh? Nice job.
I know. I'm just so impressed with your journey. I feel like I want to learn so much from you all the time. Anyways, Cara-Lyn is going to teach us something about the art of learned intelligence. She taught it at the Sidebar Summit. It was, the feedback was terrific on it. And so I decided that we're going to have her come and speak virtually to our community since not everybody can make it to the summit. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to you, Cara-Lyn, and I'm so excited about the session. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I'm so excited to be here, and I'm going to try to do my best to keep this very engaging. There's going to be breakouts, so just know that you're going to be working with a lot of folks that are in this room, and I think that that's way more interesting than hearing me talk for whatever amount of time I can get for you. But, I like to start off this session with just making some points of clarity, which is you are already the leader that you admire and that you see in others. And I know that from my own experience, which is I started my leadership journey when I was part of UC Berkeley. I worked as the first L&D member for their SLT. And I was so excited because this was my first really big role in learning and development. And I was working with these really fantastic senior leaders that I had been, in total admiration and had wanted the opportunity to work for them. Now, keep in mind, as this exciting piece is going on in my life, I'm entering a part of the organization that was $150 million in debt. So they were laying off about 7% of their workforce every quarter. The morale was low. We had no resources. Everyone was pretty hopeless. And I'm coming in, this beacon of sunshine, like, yay, we can do everything. So my first task was to just sit and observe the SLT meetings. They met every week for about 90 minutes. And my job was to just really go in and try to watch and learn and observe and try to figure out a little bit how I could start to position areas of help and support. What I learned is that when you see how the sausage is made, you might go being a vegetarian or a vegan because it's not pretty. And in this group of, about 11 SLT members, all they did was argue. And this is 90 minutes of coming into a meeting and being really excited to take notes and observe and, find ways of making really strong recommendations. I was excited. I was nervous. I knew when I should come in and I knew when I should stay. I was very emotionally in tune. And what I saw was the relationships between these people were horrific. They weren't listening to each other. They weren't engaging with each other. They weren't trying to work with each other. And I realized that I was going to get no traction in these meetings. So I actually took all of my work offline, and I would make a one-on-one with as many of these leaders as I could in between the meetings. And I would take one point that I heard in, their discussion for the SLT, and I would take it to them and say, look, can you give me a little bit more context about the pain point? Can you tell me a little bit about why you feel this strongly? What do you think is going to help you? And what I realized I was doing was building this one-on-one relationship with a lot of different folks, which was creating an avenue for me that I would eventually be able to take in order to create some impact that they would want to buy into. Now, what happened is that I was also trying to put together something that was incredibly strategic. I wanted to demonstrate my intelligence in strategy to show how these people could use resources and funding to make impact, to create connection, with the details that I saw that maybe that they didn't. And what happened is one day when they had potentially stopped arguing, this is about 6 to 8 weeks in, I'm not kidding when I say my mouth sort of just dropped open on its own accord. And I immediately started talking while I had this space. And I said, this is really amazing. And I just want to take a pause to highlight some things that I'm hearing, because Brad over in IT has explicitly talked to me about this challenge that he had, that actually Helen in HR is also dealing with, but I'm not hearing that there's connective pieces. So if I could, and I took a white marker and I went up to the whiteboard and I started writing about all of these things using graphs and demonstrations so that I could show how now these different SLT members could connect their challenges, could connect over their resources in order to create strategic movements. And after I had talked for about 15 minutes, of which I was thrilled that I got 15 minutes of space, there was dead silence. And my boss, who happened to be in the room, took pause and kind of looked around the room and he said, okay, great, Cara-Lyn, thank you so much. You can go. So I obviously knew that I had done something terrible. I had stepped into this horrible thing. I had, gone over the top with all these different areas of thinking that I understood how to demonstrate levels of intelligence that I thought were really important for this group. Then I realized maybe that wasn't the case. So when he came to my cubicle, as you do at UC Berkeley, he sat down and he kind of stared at me for a minute and he said, Cara-Lyn, have you ever thought about being a coach? Now, I could tell how serious he was in that moment, and I knew that this was a very serious question that I had to answer seriously. So I gave him like a thought-provoking look. And then I said to him, Javier, I'm very good at sports and quite competitive, but I don't actually think I could coach anybody in doing a sport well. Of course, he burst out laughing because that's not what he was talking about at all. But this is when coaching was like a brand new thing on the scene. Nobody really had coaching degrees. There was only a couple schools that were doing coach certifications. And he said to me, no, what I'm talking about is business coaching, executive coaching. He said, I never heard of this. Tell me more. And he said, a great coach, a great leader has the ability to read details in the room, to surface them without fear, and to make people align with them without fear of repercussion, and creating community and building, basically really strategic, emotionally intelligent, relationally sound people. And he said, and you have this skill so naturally that I want to put you in a program and I want you to develop the skill set that you have. And so I did that, and I became a coach probably about 15 years ago. And that's the experience that started not only my coaching journey, but my journey to really figure out how to develop intelligence. And so today, my goal is really to coach each of you to utilize your own unique sets of experiences, insights, and aspirations, all of which will become the backbone for this masterclass in the art of learned intelligence. So first and foremost, again, I gave you a little background. My name is Cara-Lyn Giovanello. Everybody calls me CLG. I am the founder and CEO of CLG Coaching and Consulting, which I describe as my semi-friendly leadership development firm. And I really specialize in creating bespoke growth experiences, creating transformative impact for leaders and teams. So I'd like to start with a quick gut check. You're welcome to actually raise your hand or use an emoji down below. But do each of you have in your mind the example of a great leader that you admire? Is that someone that you can pull up into your mind? And if so, give me just a little signal that, yes, I have it. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. Is there somebody? Thank you, Wendy. Just have that person, thank you, Chris, sort of at the forefront of their mind. So when you think about this person, think, what about their leadership style really stands out to you as the epitome of a great leader? I'm going to ask, do you think it's their impressive resume? Or is it all those bullet points that read like a superhero's origin story? Or maybe it was because they're your best friend at work, your work wife, your work husband, your work partner, and you just love them. That's what makes them a good leader. Or maybe their org happens to be the biggest one in the company. So that obviously makes for good leadership. Now, my guess is that when you're thinking of this person, it's probably none of these. And it's more likely around how they made you feel. And I'm curious if you've ever had a leader that has inspired you, has demonstrated how well they handle pressure, has shown how easily they can speak their truth even when it's very hard to do, has designed alliances across people and teams and companies and industries, and how they've made you believe in yourself. So I want you to know that this is not textbook leadership. It is what I call the art of learned intelligence. And I want to work you through that today. What exactly is learned intelligence? So at its core, it's really about mastering three interconnected forms of intelligence. You have emotional intelligence, relational intelligence, and strategic intelligence. And these are not buzzwords. They are essential competencies that really empower each of us to navigate not only the complexities of our professional lives, but also our personal lives. And I want to be very crystal clear. These aren't skills that everyone is necessarily just born with. You don't wake up and go, oh, I'm the most intelligent leader ever. The world is my oyster. It really is an art and a science to master these. And that mastery has to be learned. And it's learned from the things that you build. It's learned from deep diving into self-awareness. It's learned through making mistakes and refining countless iterations and doing endless repetitions. And so it's really doing the hard human stuff that's going to put each of you at your most vulnerable, your most intimate, and potentially your most risk positive. So I don't want to take a lot of time to go down like what I think is maybe a rabbit hole of leadership theory. However, I do want us to learn some tools that will help each of you lead with more soul, more connection, more mastery. And guess what? You don't need a fancy title for that. You just need to practice. So I want to get started with some basics so that we all have the same understanding using ourselves really as a data set. And we're going to call our first stage that we're going to quickly go through here is emotional intelligence, or EQ. So the simple truth about EQ is that it's about understanding and managing your emotions and using that data to help manage and understand the emotions of others. It really is a foundational piece of effective leadership and meaningful relationships. And I want you to just think of it as your emotional GPS. Without it, you might get lost in a sea of feelings, wondering why you just snapped at a colleague over a simple error. But when you uncover the roots of your EQ, these are your values, your purpose, your vulnerabilities, those saboteurs, those firefighters. We're going to use those details to really connect our experience to others. And that's when we enter relational intelligence or relationship intelligence. And folks, this is honestly where I believe all of the magic happens in almost any interaction, whether business or at home, because RQ is actually the secret sauce of getting things done. So RQ's sole focus is on building and maintaining healthy connections with those around us. And we're doing that because we know as leaders that we actually have to motivate, we have to influence, and we have to connect with not just one individual, but sometimes a team or teams of individuals where we are really expanding our impact exponentially. And so this is the stage where we are fostering collaboration, we are fostering safety, and we are fostering trust. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I want you to go back into your imagination here. And I want you to think of a time when you walked into a room and you could tell everyone felt valued. They felt understood. The energy was good. People wanted to be there. That is the power of successful RQ. And so it is a salve that makes teamwork not only bearable, but really enjoyable. And I think it's a tool for increasing momentum and success when it's done right. So now once we are fluid in our EQ and our RQ, then we can input those data points into our SQ, or our strategic intelligence. And this is the stage about thinking critically and making informed decisions that align with long-term goals. I want you to think of it as like a strategic crystal ball that you are offering insight into a bigger picture. And sometimes I think when you have to be really strategic, it's somewhat like a shot of liquid courage. You have to pour in the conviction to make decisions, even when all the choices are hard ones. And that's what happens as you grow in your leadership, as you're having to work with things that don't really have a positive outcome, and you're figuring out how to make one from maybe nothing. And so you might be wondering, okay, Cara-Lyn, great, you've got these three, but what will knowing these three intelligence points mean for me? And it does mean that you will be able to respond to challenges with resilience. You can inspire and motivate people to create an environment where everyone, including yourself, feels valued and heard. So as we deep dive into each of these intelligences, I really want you to challenge yourself to reconsider the ways that you can enhance your emotional understanding. You can really strengthen your ability to make connective relationships. And of course, we want to be able to sharpen your ability to be strategic, which is such a great skill for leaders. So we want to start with this component around self-awareness. And I once had a VP who told me the toughest part of my job isn't strategy. It's managing my own reactions when shit hits the fan. And we had this in a coaching session, and I said, my friend, that is EQ in action. So leaders that have a very strong emotional intelligence can first recognize their own emotions. They can see, wow, I'm responding in this way. Is it a way that is positive? Is it a way that's negative? But they're going to take the time to do that body scan so that they can regulate their responses, which in turn creates a psychologically safe environment for others to do the same. So when we are talking about EQ and leadership, I want you to keep in mind we are talking about self-awareness, which is understanding our triggers, our biases, our strengths, self-regulation, how we manage stress, how we manage frustration, how we manage uncertainty, and of course, empathy. Are you able to read the room? Can you listen beyond the words, and can you understand different perspectives? So you absolutely cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself. I'm going to say that one more time. You cannot successfully lead others if you cannot successfully lead yourself. So with that in mind, I want to do a little bit of work. First and foremost, I want you to do a thinking prompt here. I want you to think about a recent leadership challenge that you've had, whether or not your title says you are a leader. In some capacity, if you are a whole person, you have had an experience where you have been the person that needs to step into a leader role. How did your emotions influence your decision making? So I'm going to give you just about 30 seconds here. If you need to, you can jot something down, but think about a recent leadership challenge and how did your emotions influence your decision making, and be brave to say, oh, it was terrible. I went down the rabbit hole. I wish I had never done it, versus, oh, I was amazing. And let me tell you how. Both are good. And then we are going to put you in a breakout and we are going to do a little discussion. One hot take from a breakout. Was there anything that came up in your breakout that you're like, I just feel like I either need to shout out myself, some observation, or potentially my partner? And it's always good to say, my partner was awesome. That's how you build a good relationship, is acknowledgement. Alex, let's go.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually had very similar situations where I think both of us know that if we react too closely to like a trigger or a stressor, it's very like self-defense, generally negative and pretty self-defense motivating. Um, and the longer I think we can wait, or in my partner's situation, having people with like higher sensitivity or more positive people can have a massively beneficial impact on the type of response that we give. So it's funny, we kind of both came at it from different stories, but same general idea.
Yeah, that's called great modeling. And if you demonstrate it, sometimes it's like, it's parenting. I hate to say it, I reference all the times to parenting, but you don't want your kids to be throwing a tantrum on the floor, so you don't throw the tantrum on the floor. Go, golly, you seem awfully angry right now. Tell me a little bit about that. I actually wear a bracelet, just so you know. It's for senior leaders and not my children, but it says gentle. And I always have to remind myself, CEOs need gentle, sometimes prompting and love. And thank you for sharing, Alex. I think what we are talking about is that powerful connection between having an emotional awareness and then using that to build relationships with others. And so here's where we go in terms of relationship intelligence. In some cases, there are horrific effects of disconnect between two people. And when that happens, the question I want you to ask yourself is, what's the decision that you saw get stuck because the relationship itself was unclear? And so if you are doing RQ right and you are balancing it in tandem with emotional intelligence, these are like two sides of the same coin. And understanding how they work together really increases your leadership and interpersonal bank accounts. So relationships, in case we are not all on the same page, are the currency of leadership. You are not necessarily dealing with strategy. You are dealing with the emotions and the feelings and the beliefs and all the things that are related to human beings. Ask any person that has said, wow, I thought when I got this promotion, I was really going to get to do some fun strategy and to do, yeah, you have that. What you really also have, though, is 70 people that sit underneath you, 170 people that underneath you that says, hey, how are you going to build this relationship with me? So I'm curious, you can unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat. Where in life do we consciously and intentionally design a relationship? Where in our life do we consciously and intentionally design a relationship? Oh, okay. Well, Elizabeth is very good at this, just for the record, for her comment there. Yes, with my children, 100%. Richard, if you have kids, In a marriage, I was going to say, how many people are wearing a wedding ring? I'm sure you took vows of some kind that said, I vow to do this for the rest of my life. I'm going to give you a lot of support there. Partners and team, absolutely. On the flip side, if you've ever been divorced, you also have a set of very intentional ways of working with each other, with your manager, with people of influence. You're hopefully having some sort of designed relationship. I want you to even think about a coach and their team. If you've ever played a sport, if you've ever been a parent, if you've ever been married, if you've ever been divorced, these are ones that we see in real life all the time. But when we're talking about our professional lives, with most people in our professional circle, we generally just fall into a relationship like, oh, you just were made my manager. Great. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you. But it's only later when patterns or problems emerge that we try to address them. So one of our key leadership skills is to build very strong and honest relationships. And to do this, we have to pay attention to developing what I'm going to call alliances as soon as we can, because we know that proactivity is a key to strong leadership. And we are now going to use our emotional intelligence, and we are going to have that awareness to make connections strong. So the idea of a designed alliance can sound a bit mysterious, but it's essentially just describing an intentional working agreement used to create a strong bond of trust and transparency and teamwork between two people, between a team of people, and potentially between a project. And I can explain that a little bit later. So how does it work then? As with most things, it begins with an honest conversation. So if the goal is to have an intentional conversation, you are to share emotional data about yourself. And what I mean is, what are the things that make you successful? Can you write out a list of 5 things? We're going to call these your ticks, the things that keep you on time, that keep you moving, that keep you delivering when you need to, as well as a list of the things that will cause you to fail. I call these your booms. That's the thing that will explode your train track and cause your train to fall right over. So your ticks, what keeps you successful, what do you need? And your booms, the things you need to avoid and you want other people to know how to avoid. And then you share these. You share these with your manager. You share these with different members of your team, cross-collaborative partners, and you ask them to do this, the same. So this is a stage about setting expectations, about building intimacy and clear communication. So I would love for you to grab a piece of paper if you use paper and pens these days, or if you want to do something on your computer. Literally take just 2 minutes right now. I want you to try and write out up to 5 ticks for you and booms for you. So these are the things that you know, and it doesn't have to just be in your professional life. What are the things that you know you have to have in order to be a successful human being, a successful CEO, a successful parent, whatever it is, your 5 ticks? And up to potentially 3 to 5 booms. The things, if this happens, you're out. You won't make it. Your emotional intelligence will explode. But take like 2 minutes here and just write down, anywhere up to 5. You don't have to be a ton. Even 2 of each would be great. So you're going to share these with the partner and really talk about where you see these. So let's give 2 minutes just to jot these down. And then how we will do a partner breakout in a couple minutes.
Do you want 2 or 3 in the room?
I mean, 2 is always better because they have more time to talk, but if we can only do it with 3, we'll take it.
Okay. And I might move a couple people around.
Yep. Let them play with it where they're running your ticks and your booms. Up to 5 each if you can.
Do you want me to open up the rooms now?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
But thank you for asking. I want to make sure everyone can write down some juicy materials about themselves. This is going to be very emotional to share these with another person. I myself like timeliness. I very much need respect. I need people to be lighthearted, but also take things seriously when they need to be serious. Those are 3 of mine. Booms are disrespect. Doesn't always have to be the opposite side of the coin. People that take themselves too seriously. People that are not solution oriented. Oof. Why are we even working together if you don't want to bring a solution? So it's kind of in those veins. If you are thinking about them, you might want to have the underlining thought, the underlining challenge of what's potentially one thing that you think other people assume about you or assume about working with you, but they never actually say it out loud. So you've written this list and you're like, dang, I think people must assume X, Y, and Z now that I see this list out here. And I wonder if that's something I should add into a tick and a boom, because I don't want people to assume. I want people to know. That's how you build relationships, is the knowing. So we're going to have you go into a breakout, and this will maybe be for about 8 minutes. So maybe, Ha, if there's a 3, that's absolutely fine. And we'll see you back here in about 8, where you talk about your ticks and your booms with your partner. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I know it's very quick and I apologize. I like to keep you, as I said, timeliness is one of mine. So even if you can't do the deep dive, you know this exercise, but my goal is to give you these tools and then to get you out on time. I, of course, and Ha, of course, is available should you have any questions as follow-ups, but hopefully you got a little taste of that. Can I get a little hand raise or a little emoji if you felt confident in sharing yours? Did it feel good to say your ticks and booms out loud? Okay. Can I get one if it was very uncomfortable to share your ticks and booms out loud? Nathan's like, no, this is my happy state. Okay, got it. I love that. If it does feel uncomfortable, I want you to know that happens all the time, specifically because we're not asked to do it. So if this feels a little forced, you can be the lubrication, if you will, to say, hey, I know that this is a little bit scary to share details about ourselves. I'll go first. And that tends to invite the other person to be able to feel that safety and security to do that as well. And we have to be thinking about how to build those interactions, how to build that psychological safety between relationship intelligence, emotional intelligence, so that you can get to a place of strategic intelligence. And it's very clear that these are two powerful forces that when combined, what they do is they create a dynamic environment where teams not only meet their goals, but they're able to thrive in the face of challenges. So when you are part of a team and you're working on a high priority project, each person on the team gets to start to leverage their RQ, their EQ. And that's creating a culture of trust and open communication where collaboration really taps into diverse strengths and the insights of each member. And then we get to put that strategic cherry right on top. This is the stage of your leadership journey where you suddenly have the unique ability to guide a group of change makers to see around corners, to anticipate potential challenges for opportunities that can lie ahead. So this to me is Marvel magic right there. But because unfortunately, a lot of the best leaders don't always have the best options at their fingertips, they're still asked to make the best decisions they can with the information that they do have. So with this in mind, your SQ, maybe your motto, your bumper sticker, whatever, write it on a Post-it, stick it on your wall. It should read, it's not about making the right choice. It's about making the choice right. It's not about making the right choice. It's about making the choice right. And strategic intelligence is really your ability to read a room, to anticipate what's next, to make thoughtful decisions, especially when all the data that you're getting is a little bit fuzzy. There's a lot of high emotions and stakes are really critical. So it's not about having the right answers, but it's about asking the right questions and choosing a direction with confidence, even when that is very hard to do. So a couple of core elements in strategic intelligence is pattern recognition. Are you able to see the bigger picture beyond the immediate problems? Can you balance your instinct against data, knowing when to trust experience and when to challenge some assumptions? And do you have decisiveness under uncertainty? How do you move forward without perfect information? So just a show of hands, how many of you have ever made a decision where all your options were equally not great? Not great. Okay, hopefully you are holding up a hand because this is really SQ in action. And so one way to practice strategic intelligence, this is by borrowing a tool you probably are already familiar with. It's called a SWOT exercise. And you've probably used it for products or projects, but today you're going to apply it to a current challenge, not to solve it, but to explore how you're seeing it. So in your head, I want you to think of a current challenge you're facing. It could be something you're trying to move forward at work. It could be a team dynamic, it could be a personal transition, whatever. I want you to think about, first and foremost, what's working in your favor. What are the strengths here? What's working in your favor? Maybe jot down 1 to 2 things. What's working in your favor in this challenge? 1 to 2 things. Now tell me what feels messy or unclear or limiting with this situation. What feels messy or unclear or limiting? You just have to have 1 or 2. These are your weaknesses. The things that are like, I don't really know a lot of this. I don't know. What feels messy or unclear? Now, if you could get something to open up, a shifted perspective, you got support, you took a risk, what are some of the opportunities that could come if you did those things? You said, look, I'm going to look at this in a different way. I'm going to ask somebody to give me a little extra hand. I'm going to do something that no one thinks we can do, but you know, screw it. We're going to try it. What are the opportunities that exist in this challenge? And this is where I'm going to ask you to think outside the box. What's an opportunity? Even if you wouldn't really share it, just write it down. Okay, and last thing I want you to think about is what's standing in your way? What's the thing that's going to be your boom? What's the threat to this? It's the thing you really want to say. I want to highlight this is going to be the problem. This is going to be the thing that is going to blow up my designed alliance. I want you to jot that down. What's standing in your way? So we did this, 3 minutes as you're still jotting this down, maybe 2. This is a full situational scan, but you're doing it in your head. And this is what it looks like to have live strategic intelligence. So I'm going to ask you to get into one last partnership. And you're each going to share for just a couple of minutes the challenge and then walk your partner through your mental SWOT as a guide. You don't have to explain everything perfectly. I don't need a ton of backstory. Just partner A say, hey, my name is so-and-so. This is my challenge. This was the strength. These were the weaknesses. These were the opportunities and threats. And then potentially, if you have time, ask partner B, ask partner A, what's one thing you might be missing that could change how you lead through this? So we'll give you each about, I'm going to say maybe 3 minutes to do this. So it'll be quick. And How will bring you back with a couple minutes before the end of the top of the hour.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I know that was quick. You can be mad at me. I'll take that feedback directly, but it's just to give you a taste. I'm hoping that you're going to take this back to your partners, your teams, your CEO, your managers, whomever that you can, because I think that this is why we're in Sidebar. We want to be better leaders. And honestly, being great in the seat, it takes some very serious, conscientious commitment. And that heavy lift really isn't for everyone. So as sort of a wrap up here, I just want to say learned intelligence, it's not inherent. It is a powerful kind of growth, but it is also a painful kind of growth. And it's the kind of power, I think, that shifts a woman into a queen. So to master this art, it's going to ask you to feel what you'd rather numb, to listen to what you'd rather defend, and to choose impact over ego. So there is some feedback that we would like to get on. Did you like this series? Did you like me? Did you like the content? Did you like Ha? Did you like your partners? I don't actually know if all that's in there, but I would love to say thank you for that. And if you need me, I'm in the Sidebar catalog. I'd love for you guys to reach out. But otherwise, I'd say as my action step to you, pick one of these intelligences, either EQ, RQ, or SQ, and just try to work on that over the next couple of weeks. Just focus on one and do it well. That comes from a theory from 4,000 Weeks, which is a great book if you haven't read it, about prioritizing your life. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. I loved it. If you need me, you'll know how to see me. Otherwise, we'll catch you at something else. And until then, take care.
But before you leave, please do take out the phone and point it to the QR code and just share 1 minute. That's all it takes, 1 minute of feedback. Because I'm going to share the feedback with Cara-Lyn, and I know that she would value how we can even make this even better. Although, Cara-Lyn, I would give you a 5.
I'll take a 5. So. As long as that's a 5 out of 5 and not a 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Really
but she would greatly appreciate it. So just please do share the feedback, and then let us know who else you want to hear from. So I'm recruiting the next set of summer speaker series. So
thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye. All right, we'll catch up, Cara-Lyn. We'll talk
Thank
soon.
you so much.